Hello ladies and gentlemen, hi guys and girls, and welcome to my complete build guide for the Decagonal Prism Tower. The base puzzle for this build is a fused Megaminx. You can check out my other complete build guide for that I posted about 2 weeks ago, but I will also link it in the description down below. So we will have to sand down these corner and edge pieces and create sides like this. Here we have one. Here is another side, another one, and if we do that all around the puzzle, we get a 10-sided puzzle with a top and a bottom. So first of all, we will need 20 corner pieces and 20 edge pieces. I removed all of the corner and edge caps and glued them into place, because it's just a big mess if you sand everything down on a disc sander and the small pieces keep flying around. So I just glued them in to avoid this. Then I took a spare Megaminx I had from the same brand, from QJ, and taped it down so that the sides couldn't turn anymore, but I could still remove these 3 pieces here, because I would just sand them on the disc sander, switch these pieces out, and then sand again. So I set the angle on the disc sander to 36 degrees, I think it was, and started sanding it down. I used 60 grit sandpaper on the disc sander, and I think that's the best. It's not too rough that it rips the whole puzzle apart. And yeah, I think if you used a higher grit like 120 or 240, everything would just take longer. After sanding one side, I turned the corner pieces around and sanded them once more. So we have to sand 20 corner pieces on 2 sides and 20 edge pieces just flat. Here you can see the finished pieces. Again, the plastic melted from the disc sander, but we will remove all of this with an X-Acto knife. That's the assembled puzzle now, which would be called a fused and closed Megaminx, or something like that, but that's what it resembles now, in my opinion. And you can see the 10 sides even better like this. I used an X-Acto knife to clean all of the pieces out, and accidentally cut myself in the thumb, which was quite a problem, so I couldn't really grab the pieces anymore. That's why I had to wait for almost a week to continue cleaning the pieces. That's why I started to extend the first layer on each side, so I sanded down the surfaces that the epoxy sculpt would stick to it, and I used 100 grit sandpaper for that. And these 2 layers consist of 5 edge pieces on each side and 5 center caps on each side. Here you can see the filled up pieces. I also filled up some of the pieces, some of the edge and corner pieces that I cleaned up before, but as you saw, I just got 5 pieces done before I cut my finger, so yeah. The most important part to be able to assemble the puzzle once again is sanding down the mechanism part. So I just looked at the pieces and where the original surfaces were, and then sanded down along these planes. And I extended the puzzle about 4 or 5 times, I think. It took really long. So if you should ever try that, just add a little bit more material to it. You can get it done in less than 50 hours, I think. For the center pieces, I found this little trick, because for the fused Megaminx we don't use 2 center pieces. That's why I use them as a guide for the center pieces that I have to extend, or for the center caps. So here are all the edges and corners filled. I extended all of the pieces once again and thought that this was it, but it took about 2 more extensions until it was perfectly done. And once again, I used the original surfaces of the puzzle to sand down the mechanism part basically. So you can't assemble the puzzle if the mechanism is like if you extend material into the mechanism. It's a bit hard to explain. I sanded down the top, as you can see, and I also turned it halfway, 45 degrees, or yeah, 36 degrees, just so that I wouldn't turn any other layers accidentally. You can see these edge pieces needed a little bit more extending, and the center pieces also. But because I didn't want to mix up just 4 or 5 grams of epoxy sculpt, I started extending the big corner pieces as well. And it's really surprising how big these corner pieces get. So the whole puzzle weighs about 300 grams now, and I think one standard Megaminx is less than 100 grams. And it's a bit repetitive. I extended, I sanded down, extended, sanded down, and so on, but that's what worked best for me. And of course, just like always, I used my metal ruler and some 40 grit sandpaper to start everything off, because if you sand by hand, everything takes forever, and if you use a finer grit sandpaper, everything takes even longer, and I wanted to avoid that. And since I'm sanding everything down with finer sandpaper later again, I don't mind using a very rough sandpaper. And the funny thing is, I like to use dull 40 grit sandpaper. It just works the best for me, I think. And here you can see how far the corners were extended out, but they still needed even more extending. I probably used about 150 grams of epoxy sculpt and then sanded down 50 grams of that again. So I thought the extending was done after this, but obviously all the pieces needed to be fixed later again. So same procedure for these corner pieces now, sanding down all the inside surfaces. And once this is done, I could assemble them. But I soon found out that there was a tiny problem when I tried to assemble them. As you can see, the corner pieces stick out a little bit further and go over this small edge piece in the middle here. And I made a small mistake here. I took a finished edge piece and then set the corner right next to it, as if the puzzle was assembled, and started sanding it down. But I later noticed that if I did it this way, the puzzle would have some gaps in the top and bottom layer. Maybe you can see it here, where the small edge piece meets the two corners, there is a small gap. And it probably wouldn't have been that big of a problem, but every time I looked at the puzzle, it annoyed me a lot. So I decided to extend those pieces once again later. This was my first nervous breakdown when building this puzzle. I was almost done, but ripped off some corner pieces. And I think I had about 6 of these corner pieces, and if these are turned the wrong way when sanding, you can, well, there is a small part that's really weak, and I wanted to avoid that, so I just destroyed all of these, I think 6 corner pieces like that, and then filled them up once again. The cool thing is, you can take all of the pieces and set it into a Megaminx and get a normal Decagonal prism, just without the tower part. And then finally, to get the corners into the correct shape, I drew a line across the middle of the edge piece and started sanding the puzzle down, the pieces just a tiny bit on the corner. And the disc sander was perfect for that, because I just set the platform completely flat and then sanded down a tiny bit, checked, sanded down a tiny bit again and checked until the line that I drew on the piece was completely removed. So these were the final fixes that I had to do for the puzzle. I extended them with epoxy scarp once again and started sanding them down. And it helped a lot to turn the puzzle just a tiny bit so you can get to the surfaces better. Here we have the final shape of the puzzle now. I was really satisfied with this, and now it was time to round all of the pieces off. I used a nail file, and thank you very much Nathan Wilson for showing me how to do that in one of your Instagram live streams. I was very anxious to use that, but I think I got the hang of it now. So at the bottom you can see the rounded off pieces, and on the top the sharply sanded pieces. And also I would like to mention the inspiration for building this puzzle came from Nathan Wilson's hexagonal prism tower that he built from 3x3s, and I just applied the same concept to a fused Megaminx. Here you can see after 50 hours the puzzle was finally done. I just needed to spray paint, cut stickers, but this was a really big relief seeing this. Of course, I had to clean off all of the dust from the pieces before spray painting them, but that only took about 5 minutes for all the pieces, so no problem at all. And if you spray paint any puzzle parts or anything, either make sure you're in a well ventilated room or wear an air mask so you don't breathe in the fumes from the spray paint, and then open the window just to get them out. But I'd suggest do it outside somewhere. Here's the puzzle before stickering, and the sticker cutting time lapse will come later this week. Alright, and here we finally have it. The Decagonal Prism Tower, made from 2 Megaminxes fused together and then sanded down just like you would sand down a hexagonal prism tower that you probably know from Nathan's video. Alright, this puzzle, I love this puzzle. I can't tell you how much I do. Because if you see over here, I think the distances between the two pieces are perfect, just a tiny bit, and it just looks amazing. I'm super proud of it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope the build video wasn't too repetitive, but I tried my best. So if you want to build this, good luck. So how about we give it a little scramble now to see how much this can change its shape. So you see, you can turn all of these 5 sides here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the top. So we have 6 sides on each side of the puzzle we can turn. And I would say let's start by scrambling one side and then scrambling the other. So here we have the scrambled puzzle now. I will try to solve it and make a video with it. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. This was a great journey. Have a nice day.